We make jokes about fucked up shit all the time.
Yeah.
It's like the way you survive during trauma. I tell them to audiences and they gasp. I go, yeah, you've obviously never had someone die in front of you.
Hello, fuckers. How you been? What's up? What are you doing? Welcome to another episode of Guys We Fcked.
It's the Anti-Slut Shaming Podcast. I'm Corinne Fisher.
I'm Krystyna Hutchinson.
Oh, I just realized. I'm like, where's that camera looking? Nowhere.
No, we just got that one.
Okay.
We don't need it.
We're just here. I've just never seen the studio like this. Anyway, welcome to Guys We Fcked. I think we already said that. Who knows? Not even paying attention because I'm amped the fuck up.
Yeah, what you mad about?
So welcome to the show. We're going to talk right now about the Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard case. I know some of you, and some of you by I mean like some members of society, not you personally, the Guys We Fcked listeners, but I know there's mixed feelings on this. Some people are like, it's just a celebrity thing. I personally enjoy learning about celebrities, and I think they do tell us a lot more about the culture that we live in than we even realize. That being said, yeah, no, I don't like to watch like celebrities throw each other under the bus or like get into messy fights, but this is not that. I think if you don't realize how important this case is and how it could affect you as a person in a relationship, then you're missing something. And I myself didn't really pay attention to this case until maybe 3-4 weeks ago. It is documented on Without a Country, because the news show that I do with Shane Smith. A couple of weeks ago, I kind of just saw a lot of things happening on the internet, mostly what I would call a pile-on. And anytime I see a pile-on on somebody, especially a woman, I need to look into it because a lot of times I think it's unwarranted. And I'm talking about a pile-on. We've lived through Harvey Weinstein, through Bill Cosby, and the pile-on for those two people who I think we can say are monsters seemed greater than that. The amount of memes, of TikToks of celebrities making fun of her. I mean, it's kind of rare to see, celebrities going after another celebrity in that way, because why would they? It doesn't really work in their favor.
Yeah.
And so I said on the air on Without a Country, hey, this week I kind of just smelled something fishy, but I don't have the details or the facts or the research done to talk about this intelligently. So I'm going to pause, but I just wanted to go on record and say, I don't think Amber Heard is this villain that we are making her out to be. And I certainly, and this is the important part, do not think that Johnny Depp was tricked or was the one-side recipient of abuse or is somehow the hero or the winner or the person that we should look up to or a guy who should set a precedent for anything. And that's the important part. In no way am I saying that I don't think Amber Heard did anything bad or wasn't a toxic member of the relationship. What I am saying is I think Johnny Depp did a lot more shit, and the way that those two people were received was markedly different. And so first, I've spent days preparing what we're going to talk about today. So buckle up. Listen, I obviously, if you've been following me on social media, how I stand. I do ask you, if you've been listening to the podcast for a long time, even if you really believe Johnny over Amber, I would ask you to listen to me, because I think that if nothing else, I've proven myself to be a well-researched, intelligent, trustworthy person on this show. Likeable, obviously not, but who's trying? And I've spent a long time researching this, watched a lot of footage, read a lot of articles, not just from people who agree with me, because I literally have a show about doing not that. And I've pieced some stuff together, some personal feelings and a lot of facts, because that's important. You need facts. And out of all the pieces I've read, it kind of started with the opinion piece that was in the New York Times, which I do recommend reading just because it was the start of the tides changing as far as the media is concerned. Opinion piece. I'm going to look this up. Sorry. I'm really looking it up. So it's called Amber Heard and the Death of #MeToo. That came out on May 18th. And it is by Michelle Goldberg. So that piece kind of started a change in media, and I think it's important to follow it to get a better hand. Okay, the article I like the best, that I think is the most well researched, came out couple days ago. It's from Slate, and it's by Michael Hobbs. And I do think it's interesting this is a man who wrote this article, because basically I would say 90% of the other articles that were saying, hey, you're not looking at this with the right lens, were women. And I know there's been a lot of chatter about like, this isn't just like women are always right. Yeah, no, it's not that women are always right. But in this instance, I think it's a really interesting look into how we as a society look at women and how we look at people who aren't the perfect victims. So Michael Hobbs is he's a writer, and he's the host of a podcast called Maintenance Phase, and I looked it up, and it's a very popular podcast, and it's a podcast that is literally about debunking with proof things that are incorrect. Mostly they focus on health, wellness, and scams. But like, this is a man who has a following, and he has a co-host who's female, who has a following because he is so good at debunking things. So keep that into mind, because it is important. One thing I've learned with doing my new show is it's really important to not just read news from different sources, but to also look who is writing your news, because there's a lot of personal bias in news. That probably shouldn't be there, but we've turned into a kind of a social media news intake places. So we want opinion. We're more interested in feelings than facts now, and that's very dangerous. So first of all, if you don't know this, there was already a case where Johnny Depp tried to sue The Sun, which is the UK tabloid. And I know it's not like the New York Times. I'm very familiar with what The Sun is as a longtime Spice Girls fan. I know it's a rag, but even rags are held to a certain journalistic standard legally that they have to abide. Like, so and I think a lot of times, like, they can print whatever because they know celebrities aren't going to take the time and money to legally fight them. But I also think that there's a lot of lawsuits going on that aren't highly publicized that you don't know about. Like, if you watch Keeping Up with the Kardashians, those people will just say in passing, oh, we got to sue this person. So I think suing, but like, in comparison, what a magazine like The Sun is making financially is so much more because of the stories that they're telling about celebrities.
Them to keep going.
It's in the budget to be sued by celebrities. So that's part one of what you need to know. Part two is that case is in the UK, 2018. Johnny Depp sued The Sun for alleging 14 counts of abuse, and also like calling him imprint a wife beater. The
Against
judge,
Amber?
Yes, they later got her to like back it up, but like that suit was just the Johnny Depp and The Sun. That Amber
wasn't involved in that.
I mean, she was, but like, she wasn't. So the judge ruled that he was guilty of 12 of the 14 allegations, and it was proved to UK's civil standard, which is very high and very tough. It's very hard to prove that.
And then The Sun just echoed the case results?
No. He was suing The Sun for defamation. He was suing The Sun because The Sun printed an article alleging these things, and
the court case was later,
calling him a wife beater in print.
I see. Okay.
So then he sued for defamation, and the judge was basically like, no, I was able to prove beyond this, to the civil standard that you are in fact a wife beater, and there was no defamation. So right there, we're starting out bad news for Johnny.
Yeah.
Okay. So now we move into the Slate article, which goes over a lot of information. Some of this might be new to you, and I know a lot of you guys watched the whole trial as if we can't be tricked by one of the most famous and charming movie stars of all time. That's probably hard. So Amber Heard met Johnny Depp in 2009 while filming The Rum Diary. She was 23. He was 46.
Already red flags galore.
Already having a problem. And I'm not talking about like you can't date anyone of a different age than you. But I will point out that I dated someone 12 years younger and was called a pedophile every day for 6 months.
Also, when a man dates a woman that much younger than him, it's because he wants a woman that doesn't really know herself well enough to stand up to his bullshit.
Yeah. And they were both dating other people at the time, but flirted on set and bonded over shared passions for books, art, and poetry. Because I know I often meet a lot of almost 50-year-old men when I'm 23 who I had a lot of common with. Okay. Depp was sober when they first met, but as the relationship deepened, he began drinking again. In Amber's testimony, she described him disappearing for days at a time, then reappearing as a different person. He accused her of whoring herself, in quotes, in Hollywood, and grilled her about auditioning for roles that involved sex scenes. When he didn't get the response he wanted, she testified that he turned over tables, threw glasses, and punched the wall next to her head. So already, just from being a Guys We Fcked listener, we've received emails where we hear these things. Alarms are going off.
Yep.
In May 2014, Heard and Depp flew from Boston to Los Angeles on a private plane. Heard was about to film a movie with James Franco, an ongoing source of tension in their relationship because she said he was considerably younger than Depp and had made a pass at her on a previous film. Heard had already told her assistant to make sure that Johnny Depp didn't see the script for the current project because it involved a love scene. So already we see that she's
hiding things from your partner that you shouldn't have to.
Yeah, an extremely controlling relationship. By 2014, Heard said she was the only person in his life who told him the truth about his anger and his drug problem. He called her the lesbian camp counselor who ruined his fun and reminded him of what he had done on the nights he couldn't remember. Okay.
Oh, what a fun ruiner.
Moving forward, the writer of this article points out that Heard's narrative also matches nearly all the available evidence, even the evidence against her. In 2018, Depp sued the British tabloid, we were just talking about The Sun, for calling him a wife beater to defend itself against the UK's notoriously tough libel laws. The tabloid called Heard to provide evidence to substantiate its claim, which they won. The UK trial includes a text from Johnny Depp's assistant after a blow up on a private jet where he kicked Amber Heard. And the assistant says, when I told him he kicked you, he cried. So he kicked her and was so fucked up that he didn't remember. The assistant is saying that. And if you know anything about working in this industry, you know an assistant is not fucking causing trouble for no reason. If anything, we're constantly trying to not be in trouble. Well, as someone who has been not this high level, but I've been a reasonably high level Hollywood by way of New York assistant, and it is, you are constantly just looking at in my time BlackBerry to just try not to get in trouble. That's the whole job. Just try not to fuck up and get anyone mad. Johnny Depp's text also confirmed the outlines of her account. Both trials featured numerous texts in which Johnny Depp admits to becoming a different person when drunk or high. That's fun. He says, my illness somehow crept up and grabbed me. I of course pounded and displayed ugly colors to Amber on a recent journey. So that's a message that he sent to a friend. So obviously, he's talking in his fucking Johnny Depp made up language. Like he fucking went to linguistic school with Madonna. It's just so eye-rolling.
Celebrities be making up their own shit, man.
So insane. Two or more friends testified that they saw him acting aggressively towards her on one occasion, and her sister confirmed another. The sister also testified in the U.S. trial that Depp once held her dog out of the window of a moving car when he was drinking.
Would be dead.
So if you don't care about, I included that because if you don't care about women, I know you at least care about dogs.
True.
So there was numerous audio recordings presented at the trial as evidence that include acknowledgments by Depp that he has exploded in anger at Heard many times.
That's been proven.
Yeah. In one, she says, I cry in my bedroom after I dumped you a week prior after you beat the shit out of me. And Depp replies, I made a huge mistake. I won't do it again. So,
so that's implying that you beat the shit out of her.
Of course. And then this is a famous line we all know, the one where Heard says, put your cigarettes out on someone else, and Johnny Depp replies, shut up, fat ass.
Oh, really? Wow.
No.
And I just FYI, guys, the only thing I know about this case is that allegedly Amber Heard pooped in the bed, and there's all these memes about it. And I did share one, but I don't know anything about this
case. And that's what so many people only know.
Yeah.
And I think that's important. That's important.
Yeah.
And okay. Let's see. Then we go into other people, not Amber Heard talking shit about Johnny Depp. Not talking shit, like telling traumatic experiences with Johnny Depp. So as early as 1989, Johnny Depp was responding to rumors of on-set tantrums, misbehavior, and egotism while filming 21 Jump Street. A 1998 article referred to the legendary Depp temper. And just think how long ago that was and how recently men have still been misbehaving on high levels in Hollywood. And so if this has been being pointed out in 89 and 98, that's bad. In 2000, both Terry Gilliam, who's the director of Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, and Mike Newell, who directed Johnny Depp in Donnie Brasco, told Esquire that he had blown up on their sets. And again, they're male directors. They don't have anything to gain from that. They don't have anything. They were probably just fucking sick of dealing with him.
Yeah.
Now, and also, I think a lot of people don't know this. Now that Johnny Depp is done with the Heard allegations, he will defend himself against a 2018 lawsuit filed by a crew member who claims Depp berated and punched him on the set of City of Lies. So that's male on male abuse. If that makes you feel more comfortable, if that's not feeding into this, feminist agenda that I've personally cooked up,
our witch hunt.
And so again, it's like very selective. This I've talked about before. I think on Without a Country, Ellen Barkin, who was a former friend and lover of Johnny Depp in the late 90s, said he was controlling, jealous, and once threw a wine bottle across the room in one of his rages. Another of his exes, Jennifer Grey, described him as crazy, jealous, and paranoid. Adding to this, Johnny Depp, I don't know, I think you reminded me of this, Mike. No, you didn't. Someone else did. A man reminded me of this.
Kate Moss?
No, defended Roman Polanski.
Oh, right.
Defended Roman Polanski, and also said the accusations against Harvey Weinstein were implausible because his wife wasn't some hairy-backed bitch. I didn't even have the time to dig into that. But
I had not heard that.
Yeah.
Wait.
That's bad.
Oh my fucking God.
His texts from early in his relationship refer to Heard as an idiot cow. These are all quotes. Idiot cow. Let's make t-shirts. Filthy whore and quote, worthless hooker. One says, I'll smack the ugly cunt around before I let her in. Don't worry.
Wow.
These may be, this is the writer again, these may be jokes to Depp, but other correspondence has a sharper tone. In an email to Elton John, Depp described the mother of his children as, and that's the Vanessa. Depp described the mother of his children as the French extortionist ex-cunt. Later texts refer to Heard as flappy fish market. We've heard that one. Cum-guzzling whore.
Ooh,
that's been said about us.
Yeah.
And scumbag gold-digging cunt. And again, I'm not saying that you're not allowed to talk shit about your ex in text messages, but this just seems
Does he have a high regard for women?
It seems excessive.
No.
And exactly, there's a difference between like non-gender specific language that just is saying that you hate someone and women hating language. Yep. And this is women hating language, and you need to learn how to identify it. Depp and Heard had no prenuptial agreement, meaning she would have been entitled to millions in their divorce regardless of whether she was abused. She dropped her claim for ongoing support and ended up taking significantly less than she was entitled to. So she's not gold digging. As part of the settlement, though, she did withdraw the abuse allegations. So basically, she would have been left with no money had she not withdrew them. Signed a non-disclosure agreement, which is a common problem. Non-disclosure agreements are truly like gag orders, and I think that they legally, I mean, I understand why you need them from a professional perspective.
Yeah, but from a marriage perspective, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, and we have our people who work on Guys We Fcked sign an NDA, but
that's because they're reading your personal emails and we don't want them saying shit.
Sure, but when they have and we don't like want them like announcing projects before we announce them, but
professional reasons.
But I don't think if you guys know this, when you're signing a non-disclosure agreement, many times you're also like saying like you can witness like you can witness really illegal behavior. You can undergo illegal behavior and abusive behavior, and you are still by law not supposed to say anything. And co-signed a vague statement that the relationship had been volatile, but that there was never an intent of physical or emotional harm. Listen to that language
Wow,
again. She was made to sign to get any money. She had to sign something that said the relationship had been, in quotes, volatile, but in quotes again, there was never an intent of physical or emotional harm. Meaning physical and emotional harm was 100% done, but it wasn't intentional because I was drunk.
Everyone I've ever married is a cunt. I guess the problem's not me. It's all the cunts that I marry.
And not only did celebrities get involved with this narrative, brands also got involved. If you saw, we all remember the makeup incident that everyone on Instagram likes to bring up. So here's the real skinny on that. Since you guys fucking just are like, she lied, she made up she said the wrong palette, like the palette wasn't out in a year. So now I got to the bottom of this too, thank God. In the early days of the trial, Amber Heard's lawyer held up a concealer kit to demonstrate her point that Heard's bruises often weren't visible in photographs because she covered them with makeup. Almost immediately, Johnny Depp's supporters zoomed in on the image because and don't think everyone thinking, listening to like true crime podcasts and thinking that they're a fucking investigator has fucked up this. It fucked up the case where the two travel bloggers went out together.
Oh, that couple.
This new thing. Yes. So this new
bullshit
trend
fake investigator
of everyone thinking they're a crime investigator because they listened to My Favorite Murder one time, and I love that podcast. Shout out. I love it.
Shade. Love them.
Not anything against them, but you're supposed to be talking about it from like an entertainment perspective.
It's a comedy podcast. So just remember that.
So that's crazy. And so almost immediately, Depp's supporters zoomed in on the image, identified the makeup brand, and starting tagging it on Instagram. And of course, this company, they just care about money. So then the brand's official account then debunked Amber Heard's lawyer, saying that specific makeup palette they were using as a prop in court only came out in 2017. This meant that it couldn't have been used to cover Heard's bruises in her relationship with Depp. But the point was
it was a generic fucking concealer palette.
Right.
Well,
they were just using it. So this is and it's on record that neither Heard nor her lawyer had ever claimed that the thing that they were holding was the specific makeup palette used between 2012 and 2016. It was just a prop that the lawyer's assistant got.
So these fake social media PIs thought they found a loophole and could discredit Amber's lawyers, but it wasn't the fucking point at all.
Right. Yeah. I mean, this is a little bit of the author taking his own what's the word that I'm looking for?
Liberties.
Yes, his own liberties. But he's basically saying like, someone probably grabbed that from a CVS as a visual aid.
Right.
Because we know when we show people things like, part of being a lawyer is making putting on an exceptional performance, and props help, visual aids help, making people feel feelings help. So
little catchphrases.
So they don't fit. Yeah, they didn't think enough like, oh, people are going to be zooming in on this. I mean, also monsters. Because a fucking trial shouldn't be televised in this manner. It's so insane that the judge allowed this.
It was weird that this was televised.
Yeah. So nearly all of the evidence against Heard propagated on social media had the same laser focus on small discrepancies and minor misstatements. And this is so important because number one, it does not, it's a tactic of mostly Fox News, I gotta be honest, where yes, what they're saying is true. So like they hone in on something that is true. Fox does this all the time, but it's something that is so unimportant in the large scheme of things, and they blow it out of proportion.
As if it's huge to the point, but it's not.
As some kind of a got you moment. And at one point, Amber Heard referred to her makeup as her bruise kit, which is a term professionals use for makeup that creates bruises in the industry. And she quickly corrected herself on the stand, but Johnny Depp's supporters online used the slip to claim that she had inadvertently admitted to faking her bruises on the stand.
Are you serious? serious? Oh my God.
Because again, like, you know,
I am not in makeup, and if I had to cover bruises with a concealer palette, I will call it my fucking bruise kit too. Who gives a shit?
It's like a fucked up joke she was making to herself while she was being abused. She was like, I get my bruise kit. Like, we make jokes about fucked up shit all the time.
Yeah.
It's like the way you survive during trauma.
Yeah.
The amount of ungodly
Savory
jokes I've fucking made in hospice while my dad was dying. I mean, I tell them to audiences and they gasp. I go, yeah, you've obviously never had someone die in front of you.
Right.
The greatest, okay. And this is another thing. So everyone says, what about the donations? So she said she was going to donate stuff that she won in the divorce settlement to the ACLU, and then she never did. This is explained here. So the greatest and most effective discrepancy was her charity donations. After she negotiated her $7 million divorce settlement, Amber Heard announced that she was donating half to the ACLU, and she does work for the ACLU as well, and the other half to Children's Hospital Los Angeles. Over the course of the trial, Depp's lawyers revealed that the charities hadn't received the full amount.
What a cunty move on their part.
Yeah, and that Heard had lied about giving the money away. And obviously this looks bad. And then the author says, until you show the tiniest shred of interest in discovering, again, the facts. While yes, it's true that Heard hasn't donated the full amount, all evidence indicates that she intends to. In 2016, after her divorce was finalized, she entered into an agreement with the ACLU to give it the full $3.5 million over 10 years. She made the first payment, but delayed the rest because by then Depp had started trying to sue her into oblivion. She says she's spent $6 million on her legal defense so far, which I 100%, I'm sure, I can only imagine how much this costs everyone. Large charity donations are routinely spread out over longer periods, and representatives from the ACLU testified that Heard was transparent with them about her financial circumstances and remains committed to completing her payments. The proven lie here amounts to an imprecise choice of words, because on the stand she said, I donated, when she should have used the terminology, I pledged. Okay, so again, absolutely nitpicking to get the outcome that you want.
And I think, she gave them $1.5 million, didn't
she? Gave them,
right?
She gave them
the
first payment she gave already. Yes, that is, I don't know the exact amount, but
also too, if I said I want to donate this money and then the guy ends up suing me more, I'm like, and if I'm in financial duress, what the fuck do you expect? Like, you holding me to that doesn't prove anything about my own efficacy or my own morality.
And it makes sense to pay in chunks. I mean, All right, so Heard is not a perfect victim and has never claimed to be, which is true. In her own testimony, she admitted to engaging in screaming matches, fighting back, and insulting Depp in the final year of the relationship. They were only together for like 15 months total, I believe.
Oh, really?
Jesus. The judge in the UK trial said there was probably some truth in Depp's accusation that Heard was condescending about his drug use. Oh, that must have been hard for you.
She was.
Something that triggered his sense of shame, and ultimately his rage. The psychologist
so it was her fault.
Yeah, exactly.
Got it.
The psychologist who saw them in 2015 said both partners had poor communication skills and weren't able to de-escalate fights or have productive conflicts. If that's a crime, then guess what? We're all guilty.
Yeah.
There is almost no evidence that the op-ed in the Washington Post now we're referring to, which is the American case, had any effect on Depp's career.
That's the one Amber wrote.
Yes. Over the previous decade, Depp had released a string of high-profile bombs: The Rum Diary, Alice Through the Looking Glass, Transcendence, The Lone Ranger, Mordecai, Dark Shadows, didn't see any of them, and had been the subject of numerous articles documenting his dimming star power. And man, that must have bruised his ego. For years, set leakers reported that he showed up late and drunk and needed an earpiece to remember his lines. Depp has said that was used to listen to music, but...
The music of him repeating his lines. Him saying his lines over a guitar.
I like to listen to Depeche Mode while I'm doing a scene. Like, what are you talking about right now? A Disney executive testified that no one at the studio was even aware of Heard's op-ed when they decided to not ask Depp back for the next Pirates of the Caribbean movie. And let's see. Oh, yeah. And then he closes it by saying, in hindsight, the verdict came down to the minute the judge allowed the case to be televised. And I could not agree more. Here's a big piece of information. Jurors weren't sequestered or sheltered from the internet in any way during
Guys,
this trial.
This case was all that was being fucking talked about amongst the shootings happening in America because we needed something to cling on to that wasn't people getting murdered.
Yeah, meaning they were likely exposed to the same bad faith memes and out of control, out of context clips as
all that
everyone
was on
else.
social media.
And listen, as
And pro Johnny, all of it.
Oh, yes.
All of
Very.
pro
It
Johnny.
was Amber Turd.
Yeah.
and
as someone who loves fart humor, I thought that was funny, and I shared it without even looking at the videos. Really regret that.
And as podcasters, God, who knows the power of an out of context clip more than us? Literally, the people who work for me at Gas Digital, they work for me. I guess work with me at Gas. Corinne's an abuser. The
stop
people
abusing
who
us,
work
Corinne.
with me at Gas Digital, like the people who produce the clips and stuff for the show, almost every week I have to be like, take that clip down, because from the news show they take some out of context clip where I'm talking about someone and it looks like I'm saying this thing. It's just
Right.
this has happened like so many weeks in a row.
It's exhausting.
Plus, this case has been swirling around the internet for years, which is true, making an impartial jury difficult to imagine in the first place. One man was allowed to stay in the jury pool after revealing a text from his wife that read, "Amber is psychotic."
Wow.
So that's fun.
That's just a little sway. Swaying much. That was allowed, which is, wow, that's crazy. That is insane that this case was allowed to be documented.
Oh, and those are
you're feeding is to the sharks.
Yeah.
Which is public consumption in the internet.
Yeah, and if you want to see the power of TikTok and what power it held over this trial, just Google how TikTok affected the Amber Heard trial. It's there's a BBC article, Trial by TikTok. There's a CNN
Slate.
article. There's a Slate article. There's a New York
Jesus
Times
Christ.
article. There's a Guardian article. BuzzFeed. Just
Wow, this case is already generating so much money in clickbait.
Exactly. And that's what
Jesus
happened.
Christ.
And early on, and the reason it only became like a pile on that was so bad that I had to stop and take notice was because in the early days of the trial, they were trying to make both silly Johnny and silly Amber content.
Yeah.
But people weren't feeling the Amber content, and content creators weren't making money. And this is not speculation. This is all fucking, I can't read every news article to you guys. You got to do some of the work for yourself. But like, this was, it's on record that they were making so much more money, creators, from doing Amber content, that they just started doing Amber content. Because you know what? A real like mentality that we have as this society is like,
To shit on women.
and also just to show, they're celebrities. They're not human. It doesn't matter.
Also,
we can
there's
do
this-
whatever we want to them because they're rich and they're famous and they were asking for it. And if they didn't want to be abused by all of society, they shouldn't have followed their dreams. That's the fucking mentality that we have, and it's absolutely disgusting. Do you not remember Britney Spears, Monica Lewinsky? Do you think this is not the same exact thing? Of course it is. How many times do we need to relive history before we learn a fucking lesson?
A lot more, apparently.
It's
nauseating.
And I think part of it is also like we care more for Britney Spears because she gave us a lot more things. Amber Heard didn't create anything I love, so I guess she doesn't matter. She wasn't in any of my favorite movies, but I don't want to give up Edward Scissorhands and Cry Baby and that fucking bastardization of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. If you like that,
you didn't like that?
You like that?
It was very creepy and
See a
pedophilic.
therapist if you like
Allegedly.
that movie. That's my hard stance. So listen, I am sorry to tell you this, guys, but if you think that Johnny is innocent or the hero, you were tricked. You got, and it sucks. I don't get got a lot. I've gotten got by a fucking manipulator, abuser guy before, and it's no one I've talked about on this show, and I'm not going to start a thing here, but it sucks, okay? It sucks. Not physical abuse, but
Everything else, though.
Yeah, and it sucks. I know it sucks when you as a smart person get got. It sucks. But if you can't see the way we are treating Amber and the way we treat many victims of domestic abuse and violence, including men, very often men are rarely believed in these cases. I am convinced that there's something or someone in your world who convinced you that men are now being targeted, because that's what's happening. There's, again, look online. There's so many conversations about how kind of like incels basically took over this movement. Men hate the Me Too movement overall because it puts them on watch and it puts them on notice. And
it takes the fun away from their lives.
I'm with. I am 100%. I'm with you because I think that like. I don't want to screw up your flow, but I just think it's like, it's gross that there were a lot of men that were celebrating this whole Johnny Depp thing as a victory for men.
It feels wild. There was a lot of memes that was like, congratulations to Johnny Depp for winning an argument against a woman. And I was like, I don't even know the details of that case yet when I saw that. And I was like, that is fucking disgusting.
But it's like also,
that's fucking disgusting.
Man, like look at those, because I was getting served some of those clips on social media.
Sure, we
like,
all were.
How like pro Johnny Depp meme accounts, which I didn't even think existed.
Right.
But they were like pro Johnny Depp meme accounts showing his testimony and basically how charming and funny he was on the stand. That was literally, it's like, if you can't look past that
after eating Taco Bell or something.
You just don't have a nose for somebody that's full of shit. And that was the thing that was just so fucking frustrating with this as a guy, because it's like, to be a man speaking out against it, you seem like a jerk off in a lot of ways. Because a lot of guys that I know were like, what do you mean this is like, you think Amber is like a victim here? It's like, dude, there's enough evidence that shows that Johnny, whether he got off and like beat the system, he still fucked up and treated her like shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I don't know. It was just an aggravating thing as a person as a man who was not pro Johnny in this situation to like speak out against it.
Yeah, because everyone thought everyone was like, this is the crack in Me Too that so many men were looking for, and unfortunately there's still so many, as Krystyna and I have been talking about, there's still so many pick-me girls in our society,
which is such a fascinating concept.
And again, I want to talk about that at length with someone who has like a level of expertise in it. I mean, I know what it is and what it means, but I want to do like hours of research on it. And so I think like, if I'm specifically concentrating on women who are celebrating Johnny, and there was women outside the courthouse when he with posters like it was a fucking celebrity convention. But there's like a little girl inside of you who is hurt or abused.
Oh yeah.
And something in you, I truly feel, will feel better if the attention of being called the crazy lying whore isn't on you anymore.
Yeah. Let's look at that girl and focus on that. And the fact that she's such a beautiful, stunning woman, I feel like people feel even more powerful, men and women, shitting on her.
Oh, and
that's really disgusting, because society says if you're a woman, your value is in your looks. So, now we can even feel better that we're taking down, number one, a woman, number two, this hot female Hollywood ingenue. And you feel like this gross sense of power that you get to shit on her. And that's also something that you should take a fucking look at.
Yeah, there's
pieces of trash.
You really just hit on something, the most interesting part of this Clementine Ford piece that I shared on Instagram. She's at Clementine_Ford if you want to go read it. But she talks in this piece, about the attack on pretty women in society, especially by other women. Yeah. And she even points out one of the greatest examples historically, which is Marilyn Monroe.
Oh yeah.
We all have a picture of Marilyn Monroe somewhere in our houses. They're selling cop prints at Target. But during her lifetime, Marilyn Monroe was treated like a president fucking whore.
Yeah. And that made me think of the Diane Sawyer Britney Spears interview, where Diane Sawyer was like, well, you make men feel uncomfortable the way you dance on stage. And Britney was like fucking 18 years old, and she was like, I'm sorry, that's not my problem. And Diane was like, yeah, well, maybe you should think about that. And I'm like, ew. Yeah. Women feeling threatened by other women's good looks is so what a disservice, huh? That's the patriarchy winning.
Oh, for sure. And and so I think like there's someone inside of you who's glad. There's a relief in not being the crazy lying whore anymore.
Right.
Maybe those are things that you secretly say to yourself. Maybe someone you love or who loves you, in quotes, says those things to you. And maybe for a second it was nice for the negative attention to be on someone else.
Right.
To be on someone more famous, with more money, who's prettier, who had the opportunity to date opportunity, in quotes, to date one of the most famous movie stars of all time.
Ooh, wow.
Maybe that diversion of attention felt nice. This is my writing now, guys. Maybe that diversion of attention felt nice for a moment to breathe, a moment to hide, a moment to agree with the people who have talked down to you and about you for so long, because hey, if you can't beat them, join them. And I do have some sympathy for you in that. I fucking get it. It must fucking suck to have those voices in your head, but to use them and to weaponize those mean voices that you use towards yourself or that other people use to you to another woman is reprehensible. Again, we kind of covered the lying. Everyone's like, she lied under oath so many times. I mean, First of all, I think it's more like she messed up a few times and we all honed in on those mistakes because we love to nitpick women.
Because you love Captain Jack Sparrow.
How many times have you heard on this podcast and in the world, like, women can't make mistakes. Women of color have to be perfect at every fucking thing because one little slip up and the whole world gangs up on you. What a disgusting way to live.
Right. And first of all, I mean, we all lie a little bit to make ourselves look better. I mean, I don't even think
Instagram.
I don't even think it's like purposeful. I mean, I think sometimes it's like leaving things out.
Survival. Sometimes it's like knee-jerk reactions a lot of ways.
Also, if you're being abused over the course of many, many months, I would think that you would just like misremember things. I wasn't abused and I misremember things from relationships all the time. Not because I have some fucking ulterior motive, just because the human memory constantly fails us.
Yeah.
Constantly.
It does. And there's a lot of scientific evidence to back that.
Yeah, witness accounts are not like, I know people think witness accounts are this strong form of proof and evidence in court. They're really not, because we misremember so many times. Think about all the times that, you know, people saw a guy. I mean, this is the most common thing, is like people see a black man committing a crime and then they just choose another black man from the lineup. Like, our memories aren't fucking good. And also, like, do you know how embarrassing and invasive and vulnerable it is to talk about all the worst parts of your relationship publicly? Because I do, and Krystyna does.
It's not fun.
You know, it fucking sucks a lot of the time.
And then when it gets used against you, oh, that hurts.
Yeah,
and that was by a smaller audience.
And that's the thing. And I said, guess what? You, the listeners, are often very cruel about it. You are. It's like you sign up to be cruel sometimes. And this is like, not all of you, but enough that I have to say it.
Unfortunately, the cruel ones are the loudest, which really is a disservice. But yeah.
The same people who DM'd our boyfriends to fuck them the same day we poured our hearts and souls out to you are now calling me crazy because I am providing, with a lot of facts and evidence to back it up, a different perspective, a perspective that you don't want to be true. I was called I lost hundreds of followers on all my social media the past week for speaking out. I've been called crazy, an abuser, a contrarian, someone who sticks up for women just because they're women. Honestly,
no, not at all, girl. What the fuck? Have you listened to her? Shut the fuck up.
It would really be nice if some of you ever stood up for women, and more importantly, ever stood up for yourselves. Okay,
that's all we really want.
And yeah, I'm not going to sit here. Of course, I've said mean things about women out of jealousy, anger, because it was a funny thing to say quickly, because it would make the boys laugh. I'm guilty of that too. But my eyes every year are opened more and more, and I've really been watching that the past couple of years, and really changing who I spend time with and who I do comedy with, and of course, I still slip up every now and again, but it's something that I really think about a lot. And I mean, God, I will never call a woman crazy again. The most, in the past week, the most fantastic women I've ever met in my whole life slid into my DMs to say thank you. Thank you for saying something that I couldn't because I was scared to, or I did say something and my friends ganged up on me, called me crazy. And these are high-powered women. I'm talking about heads of accounting firms, law partners, mathematicians, fellow comedians, journalists, friends from grade school, high school, colleges, women in crypto, women who are married, women who are unmarried, women who live in the US and abroad, white, black, Indian, gay, straight, bi, people who I haven't spoken to in years reached out this week. And I'm telling you, I mean, people who didn't reach out when I became a comedian or did a TED Talk or wrote a book or got a TV deal, they reached out this week because this was so important to them. And it's like, if you don't see the pattern of like, yeah, women are afraid to speak out about their abuse. And many victims of abuse are afraid to speak out about their abuse. And it's like, even in talking about someone else who was abused, we now have a fear of talking out about that. Like, do you not see the irony here?
That's
do you
wild.
Do you not see how much of a problem it is if you can't like state your opinion that Amber Heard maybe isn't a lying cum bucket for
Corinne?
I wasn't saying I believed everything Amber Heard said. What I was saying was I didn't think Amber Heard was a lying cum bucket who deserved to get kicked, and that's what do you not see a problem here?
Yeah, that's a big problem.
And moving on from the women, some of the worst men in my life showed their true colors this week. You know, I don't think it's a coincidence that the boyfriend who treated me the nicest was the only one who said something nice about Amber Heard. Okay,
wow.
It all adds up. Okay, some men this week solidified the fact that I'll never have a drink with them or answer their telephone call or sleep with them ever again.
Wow. Yeah.
Women aren't innocent just because they are women, but the inequality in our standards of behavior are glaring. When will we stop begging men who never respected us in the first place to choose us and like us and think we are worthy of being fucked by them? How can we undo the need to be picked by men? Did you feel good when you said Team Johnny and your guy friends or your boyfriend or your husband said, "That's why I love you. You're a girl who gets it"? Did you feel chosen and special? Because in that moment, you chose him over you yet again. Stop turning your back on yourself. And if you can't do that, I beg you to stop turning your back on us, the group, the women. Okay? I think that's it. I think that's all I want to say. I have more written here, but I mean, that's the point right here.
The crux of it.
That's it. I can go on and I can have this conversation all day.
It's so funny because Corinne was, and I told her when we were hanging out the other day, I'm like, I was like, I don't really know much about this case. Exactly what I said on this intro. I still don't. And then she told me like what the verdict was and why the judge ruled that because of the op-ed piece that Amber wrote. I'm like, that is dangerous. And the fact that Corinne's getting all of this awful residual reaction from saying that Amber Heard isn't a cum bucket and deserves to be kicked is wild. And I'm like, man, people on this planet there's so much energy, like pent up bad negative energy swirling around in our minds and in our hearts and our souls that we're just ready to pounce on people without actually thinking and analyzing the facts because you don't have enough energy to. Well, just stop taking don't use this case as a public punching bag for your own shitty problems. Look within, man.
Yeah, it's
look at yourself and analyze yourself.
It really is. It is a whole larger conversation about calling women crazy, and I don't think people really realize how powerful labeling a woman crazy is. It's almost impenetrable, and this is something that's been used for a long time, calling women crazy, like legally. Dave Chappelle years ago, if you guys remember, he took a long break from comedy and from his TV show, and he said not to label people as crazy, and he became a provocative hero. It was poignant when he said it. When women say not to call women crazy, it's somehow
we're a lunatic.
It somehow makes us crazier.
Oh, she's just should go to the loony bin. Yeah.
Just to see people in my comments calling Amber crazy, someone you've never met, and me crazy, someone you've also probably never met. It was I really think you nailed it on the head, Corinne, when you were like, people want to call this woman crazy so that for 1 second the spotlight isn't on them. The spotlight is internal, right? So if you're a woman who commented on Corinne's Instagram like, oh, Amber Heard is crazy, your spotlight is internal. Obviously, I see it now because I see that comment and I fucking see through that shit. But that's the main problem here. It's like we want to get away from ourselves because we don't like ourselves, so we're quick to shit on people and to take society's treatment towards us and recycle it back, and that's never gonna you're gonna live a life of chaos if anything internally if you keep living life this way. And I mean it was so weird because so many of the like public comments were anti-Amber, pro-Johnny, and then the DMs were all like, oh my God, thank you. So it's like, I just, again, there's something smells really funny when people are afraid to speak up about something, about anything. Yeah. Whether I agree with it or not. I didn't spend all weekend researching because I give a shit what you guys say to me on my Instagram. I don't care about that. It's so disheartening, and I use that word a lot on this show, to spend almost a decade doing a pro-women show and have so many women respond in the way that you did. I'm not even started on the men yet. And if you want to do some further research into other cases like this, you can look into Gamergate and how Anita Sarkeesian was treated. And then also, very famously, you can look into the Mia Farrow and Woody Allen case. Mm-hmm. And again, again, this is not even, I know some people are like, you're allowed to have your opinion, Corinne. My opinion's right. I'm right on this. I don't care if we reconvene in 20 years, but this is what's happening is fucking wrong.
Yeah.
It just is. I know it is. I've really never, there's very few times over the course of this podcast that I felt this strongly about something.
Yeah.
That wasn't related to myself.
Yeah. So there we have it.
So that's that. Presented my fucking case.
You know who else is, who's just lovely? And here's a conversation we're really excited for you guys to hear is our guest this week. Oh my God. I'm so excited for you to hear this conversation. I love this man. We bonded so much and have so much in common. But for you guys, what you need to know is he's a relationship expert. He is an award-winning sex therapist, and he's host of Sex and Chronic Illness podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show, Dr. Lee Phillips. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, we are here with Dr. Lee Phillips, aka Lee.
Yeah.
I'll be calling you Lee at the end of this. Dr. Phillips, you are a relationship expert.
Yes.
Therapist, psychologist, any other
Psychotherapist.
Psychotherapist. You're a therapist for psychos?
Yeah, sex and couples therapist.
Couples therapy.
All those
where relationships
things.
go to die or to re-blossom, perhaps?
Well, a little bit of both.
Yeah. A lot of people,
Honest answer.
Yeah,
They can die or they can blossom, right?
Right.
I mean, that's really why people, I think, come to therapy.
Yeah, and or you discover, like, do I want to put the effort into this shit anymore?
Right.
Sometimes,
I mean, it can get exhausting.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So we were talking before we started recording, because you have a lot of interesting topics you bring up on your Instagram. Let's just start with a weird one. Splooshing. What is splooshing, and what is your experience with people talking to you about it?
Well, you know, what's great about being a therapist is that often when you hear things come up in the sex therapy world, we have mentors and supervision that we can go to. So the first time when I had a client that said, I'm into splooshing, I was like, what the fuck is that?
1 second.
To my, what? Wait a minute, let me figure this out. And so then I heard that it is about playing with food when you're having sex.
Okay.
So, which people do. I mean, you hear about the whipped cream and the banana and the chocolate and all that. But he told me that he enjoyed sitting on cakes naked.
I get the freedom in that. It's like
I do
peeing,
too.
It's like peeing in the ocean.
Yeah, well, you know what? It really is when you think about it. But if, you know, and he said, I like the way that the cake and the icing and everything feels on my genitals when I sit on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I can see where that can feel interesting or it can feel good.
Well, it's like, you know, that what's that movie with Robin Williams where he's the doctor and that old lady was
Patch
like,
Adams?
Yes, Patch Adams. And she's like, I've always wanted to go into a pool full of noodles, and she did it. And you're like, I would fucking love to be in a pool full of noodles.
That would actually feel really good.
And I would want to be naked in it just to
it's
see
like
how.
slick and it's all over your skin.
I think that would be fun.
I think it would be fun too. So you know what? I was, you know, and one of the things that we do as sex therapists is that sex positive sex therapists is that we tend to validate and normalize. And so when he told me that, I was like, okay. And then from then on out, it was like, okay, so you love sitting on cakes. I mean, the thing of it is that he wasn't really coming in because of that, but he knew that I was a kink aware therapist, so he could talk about it.
Right. Which is not everybody.
Because if someone came in and they were like, yeah, I like to sploosh, or, you know, I like to urinate in my wife's panties, I mean, then they would go, well, you need to go see somebody else, right?
Right. Yeah. I am not equipped.
Right.
Do people work out their trauma through kink?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It can be very powerful for someone because they can actually focus on something else that's not always their anxiety or their trauma response.
Yeah.
So they can go into a kink scene and it can be it tends to normalize it for them. They're communicating, they're getting something from it. It's that good pain versus that bad pain. So, you know, people always think that when you're involved in like BDSM, that you must have some type of traumatic history.
Right.
And there's no evidence research that supports that.
Okay. Yeah.
But there is evidence research that supports that kink is healing to us and it's fun. And also, you have to be a damn good communicator.
Oh my God. The kink community is very on top of their conversation skills.
They really are.
And there's this language that sex communicates that you just can't get verbally. We were answering an email when we were recording an intro earlier from a woman who comes the hardest from brutal rape porn. And she was a victim of rape herself. And I'm like, that makes all the sense in the world. You're being on the other side of it. Everything is power. Every relationship you ever have, there is some type of power dynamic. And for sexuality to be aroused, there has to be some power dynamics at play.
Absolutely. And I think the other thing too is that with sexuality, there is that power play, but in all relationships, most people have had some type of trauma.
Yeah.
You know, I think everyone has had trauma in their life. We all have childhood wounds. We have things from our past that maybe we haven't been able to let go of. And so when we're in something like a kink scene, you can do that. It's freeing. It's liberating. It's doing something different.
It's playing pretend too.
It is. It's like you're acting.
Fun. Yeah, it's diving into your imagination, but incorporating your sexuality into it.
Yes, it's so much fun. And I find that that's what's really healing about it is that, you know, you can have someone who is a big manager or CEO somewhere and they love to be subby in the bedroom. And then you have someone who's taking orders all day and they like to be a dom. So it's very empowering.
Yeah.
I saw something too on your Instagram about BDSM and was it people with chronic illness?
Yeah, chronic illness and chronic pain, which is an area that I specialize in. I specialize in chronic illness and sexuality.
Oh, wow. That's a big one.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
Can you talk a little bit about that? Because that's not something that we've really covered here. And I think that's interesting. Yeah.
It's one of those areas of sexuality that doesn't get talked about enough.
Right.
You know, we do talk about sex and disability, but what's going on with people that have invisible illnesses, such as different autoimmune diseases?
Yeah.
And so what it does for them is that it allows them to step into a world where they're not always consumed by their pain and their illness.
Yeah.
Because when people get diagnosed with various types of illnesses, they stay wrapped up in it. They're consumed in it. They're always thinking about it. But when we go into something like a kink scene, it's almost like you dissociate in a sense and you're not so focused on it.
Okay.
Which I think is very empowering for people, and they can try something different instead of always having to talk about their illness.
Right.
You know? And
your nipple is clamped. You're like, oh, I can't feel the other pain because my nipple's clamped.
Right, my nipples are clamped.
Hanging by the skin of your back,
or
from
I'm
hooks on
tied
the
up,
ceiling.
or I'm getting flogged and I'm being spanked and I'm not focusing on my migraine headaches at the moment.
Yeah.
So it's so empowering for people when they can try something different like that. So sexuality is always about creativity anyway. So it's allowing them to get creative with themselves when they're in some type of scene.
And when people come to see you, I imagine they're at this precipice of, okay, I know there's something better for me, but I don't really have the tools to get there. So you've probably had the privilege to watch a lot of people blossom into their own sexuality.
Oh, it's so rewarding. That's why I love this work.
Yeah.
It's so nice to see people come in where they feel like they're broken or they can't be sexual, and then watch them become very sexual in their own bodies first with solo sex and masturbation, which serves great purposes for chronic pain as well. And so then allowing them to have sex with someone, or, you know, really kind of find a partner to date or have a play partner. And so it is empowering, and also referring folks that have chronic illness and disabilities to surrogate partners to teach
sex
them.
surrogacy. Oh my God. I've been wanting to interview a sex surrogate so bad. Can you explain sex surrogacy?
So I'm interviewing two today on my podcast, the Sex and Chronic Illness podcast.
Wow.
And so really it's a way to work with a client, to build trust, to learn how to create emotional bonds, learn how to touch, be touched, and explore pleasure. And then sometimes a surrogate may have sex with a client, but sometimes they don't even have to get to that point because the client's like, wow, I think I have the tools now where I can do this on my own. So with someone that has a disability that's never had sex before, you know, it's a good way to introduce that. Or if someone has had sexual trauma and they've worked through their trauma, but now they want to become sexual in their bodies.
Yeah, and enjoy
it's
themselves
super
again.
Powerful. It's such great work.
Yeah, role play. There's a lot of value in role playing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's this creativity that can happen that I think doesn't get talked about enough. So I'm a big fan of surrogate partner therapy. I think sex therapists could really benefit from it more, from working with a surrogate partner.
Yeah.
And the way that it works is that the client goes to the surrogate partner and then they have their experience and they come into sex therapy and they process what it brought up for them, what type of emotions came up, what made them feel uncomfortable. Is there something that needs to be changed?
Comprehensive.
It is. It's
really cool.
It is. It's a lot of work too, because you're also meeting with the client, but you're also meeting with the surrogate partner as well.
So much communication. So and then you act as kind of the I don't know,
middle person,
the translator.
Yeah.
and you go back and tell the surrogate what worked, what didn't work.
Right, absolutely. Or then the client goes back after I've talked to the client
with the right words.
With the right words. And so often what they'll do is they'll do notes on the client and then they will send the notes to me. And then what I do is I go through those notes with the client.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's very empowering, especially with people that have had sexual trauma, because they really do feel like there's a piece of them that's missing sexually. It's very easy.
Their sexuality was used against them.
Exactly.
It's awful.
It's awful. And so the thing is that it's so easy for them to say no, but not to say yes. So it allows them to feel more comfortable in their bodies so they can do that.
God, it's so funny because I this is not a disability, but like you talk about people pleasing on your social media. And I always thought about how, and I've said this before, like it would be great to have a male sex doll because I could actually figure out how I want to move with no insecurity because it's not a person there,
right.
but it's the shape of a person.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I can actually, and I'm like, oh, I wonder if there's like sex surrogates for people pleasers. Because I would hire one. Because it's hard. And I'm not going to do it with a man I'm seeing. Like, I don't know. It doesn't feel safe.
Well, and it feels safer when you're working with someone who's not going to judge you or shame you. It's like you're doing.
There's no
this
stakes.
work. There's no stakes.
I don't have to impress them.
I don't have to get you to
Right.
fucking love me.
Right.
It's exhausting.
Right. And a lot of times something.
You don't have to get anyone. They'll just naturally love you.
You say that. But that's not how I feel inside.
Exactly. But it's powerful work, It's really great because it allows someone to be in their bodies. And you know what? If the client falls in love with the surrogate, which has happened.
Yeah. Because you're trusting. I totally
It's
see
trusting.
that.
I mean,
Well, that's why people fall in love with their therapist all the time.
Shit, all the time. I can't even.
Oh, wow. If you... Oh, I know. I got so many PO boxes.
You're
stuffed
either
with
all the
love.
Valentine's Day cards.
Oh gosh, yeah. Or they just don't say anything, but they are in love with you.
You see it in their
Yeah, you
eyes.
feel it. Yeah.
It's so intimate. And what's interesting is that during COVID with Zoom, which I
Right.
hated at first,
Yeah.
it was wild, but I can really see their eyes better and they're looking at me and I'm looking at them. Yeah. And it's wild. And now I get uncomfortable sometimes with in-person therapy. I'm like, I've been doing this shit for so long and I've got someone sitting in front of me and I'm like twitching. And
Where's the barrier?
there's no barrier.
Right,
And
they're just there.
Well, and they always teach you and like when you go to school to be a psychotherapist that there should never be a barrier.
Oh.
I'm like,
Well, I mean,
shit,
there should be some barriers.
I mean,
don't fuck your patients.
Well, yeah.
Especially when you talk about sex.
That's a good one.
Surrogacy is different, but
yeah. But I love my barrier.
Right.
Yeah.
I love it now. And now I don't have that sometimes. And it's like, okay, I've got this couple in here with me and I've got to do this work, which, I mean, I missed it, but it's still hard.
Yeah.
You feel the energy of the uncomfortableness, the sadness, the terror, whatever it is.
You do. And sometimes on Zoom or if you're doing like telehealth, it's hard to actually see that sometimes.
Yeah.
But I'll never forget when I started doing telehealth, I was living in a studio apartment with my husband and my husband was having to work. He was using the bathroom sink for his desk.
Oh my God.
I had a little noise machine.
Oh, yeah,
and then
yeah.
I was doing sessions and of course George Floyd had just been killed. So it was
Oh,
Black
my
Lives
God.
Matter. So I had
The
helicopters.
protesters.
I had helicopters above my studio apartment while I'm doing sessions.
Right.
Trying to like heal people and I've got
right.
helicopters
It's a little
above
tense
me.
right now.
It was
Yeah.
so tense,
Yeah.
but then as human beings, we get used to things.
Well, yeah, and there's this tendency too for every person, not every person, but most, to feel like you can't handle facing your own pain when you actually can. That's the
Yeah.
big rub to all of this.
Oh, I
feel.
know.
The whole fucking thing is really rooted in you can face your own pain and it's gonna hurt and be sad and hard, but like that's how you pass it through your body.
It's so great when you can do that. When people have chronic pain, you really do have to form a relationship with it. And when you can form a relationship with it, you can actually manage it a lot better.
Right.
Where when you try to control it and you fight it, people find themselves in more pain.
Oh, of course.
You
Well,
know?
your brain can make you feel pain.
Oh, yeah. Your brain and body is so connected. That's why people have erectile issues.
Yeah.
I started reading a book last night and it's basically kind of talking about that, like walking into the pain, walking into the fear. It's using a lot of Buddhist principles, but that's what they're just like, no, we make the mistake of doing all these things in life to avoid situations which we're scared of. And one of the first stories that the author tells is like a dog got off its chain, like a guard dog got off its chain and was running towards a group of people, and everyone ran away. And then this person charged at the dog, and then the dog recoiled with its tail between its legs because it faced the fear head on. And I'm like, I mean, that's don't do that at home, kids.
Yeah,
don't do that at home.
Chad, we're not saying run towards the animal.
Not saying that works 10 out of 10 times.
No,
and you're going to find out the hard way.
Yeah,
but I was like, fascinating.
Yeah, it's amazing. And it's interesting when I work with patients where they are chronically ill, and if they do have pain due to their illness and they start recognizing it and form a relationship with it, it's very empowering.
Yeah.
They're not running from it. They're not avoiding it. And of course, there's going to be times where you don't want to accept things, right?
Yeah.
But when you can get to a place where you can at least try to do that, we see that people can actually cope a lot better than fighting it all the time.
Yeah.
And where it just takes them down even more.
Have you seen people ever completely alleviate their chronic pain?
You know what? I have, especially with chronic back pain. It's
because there's a
interesting.
lot of mental stuff that's tacked to that. The Untethered Soul talks about that, and like Louise Hay, I've heard her talk about that.
Right.
And basically, like you can heal yourself, and
you really can.
It feels insulting. I've witnessed people react in a way that they feel insulted. That I say there that is a concept that gets tossed around, but it's like. But like you said, if you keep fighting it, you are perpetuating the pain.
Right. And what we find in the literature now when it comes to mental health and chronic pain is that psychotherapy has become one of the leading treatments for chronic pain. Because you have to process your emotions and your feelings. That's why I think people can heal themselves. If you're angry all the time and you're wrapped up in it, your brain is communicating with your body.
Yeah.
What makes psychotherapy unique? I think because there's a lot of it's tossed around like psychotherapy, like who you're going to. Because like I just go to like a regular therapist, but she's not using psychotherapy.
Right.
So, can you explain that a little bit?
Well, I think what's great about psychotherapy is that you're actually using some type of treatment modality with what's happening. So you could be using cognitive behavioral therapy where you're looking at your thought process and we're trying to change thoughts. We're trying to look at them a different way, trying to address like a lot of the irrationality that could be going on. So that's really part of that. And you're really giving the patient or client homework to come back and report on. The same thing with sex therapy. I mean, sex therapy is rooted in cognitive therapy.
Okay.
So I'm giving like people in relationships things to go home and try and then come back and see how it works. I mean, my family in North Carolina, they were like, are you fucking your clients? And I'm like, Jesus, that's not what it is.
I mean, at least we have honest communication.
But we're talking about sex, but it's like
is that coming from a place of not being comfortable talking about sex? That they're asked that?
I think so.
Yeah. If you're talking about it, that must mean you're doing it. It's like, no, we can talk about it and not do it.
Exactly. That's what it's about. It's about sex at its heart is about communication anyway, right? So that's what we're talking about. But that's through a psychotherapy lens too.
Okay.
Even when we're doing trauma work, we may be going into the past and digging some things up, which can be uncomfortable. But again, it's almost like what you're saying. You have to like feel that pain before you can have healing sometimes.
And how did you get into this work to begin with? Because it seems like, it's not like your family was like, oh, Lee, go talk about fucking.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah.
Talk about people's ding
Well, I was an actor and a dancer for years before I went in to be a psychotherapist. And so I moved to New York at 19, wanting to go into theater, and went to college, and then got a taste of New York City and started working at the Tunnel as a dancer, which was fun.
Cool. What's the Tunnel?
The Tunnel was a nightclub back in 1999. Well, it started in the 80s, but I got to work at the Tunnel and explore that and be around lovely people and people who are actually pretty famous now that I worked with, like Peppermint Gummy Bear and Amanda Lepore.
Oh my God.
All of those people that were there.
Wow.
And really Peter Gatien and Alec, what's his name, who then died. He cut somebody
Alec.
up and he like.
The nightlight, the limelight guy.
Limelight guy. Yeah, party monster.
Wow, you were amongst the party elites.
I was. It was fun.
That was like the time to be in the New York. I just missed it. I'm so jealous.
Yeah, it was fun. And then I went home and got my shit together and finished all my degrees. And I said, I miss New York. I want to go back to New York. I think it's a great place to practice therapy, but also to get involved in the media and certain things. And so I came back. there's something about New York that's different from every city. There's like an energy here like no other. And you can come in and you can let it suck you up and spit you out, which it did to me when I was 19, or you come back and you take it and you're like, we're going to do this again.
I'm going to straddle you.
Yeah.
So,
New York's like the ocean. Like it just pushes you out and then you go, no, I'm
I'm
coming
come back with a fucking catamaran boat.
But I loved going home and working on myself and doing that.
Yeah.
And really, you know, that's what I found the love. I started feeding the homeless up here too when I was young. And so I started volunteering at like soup kitchens. And I was like, I think I want to go into social work. But I'm not sure which kind and give back. And so that's what really got me into this work. And then I started going to workshops and people were like, well, you should become a sex therapist because people need to like really learn to have sex or reclaim their sexuality.
Shame around it.
So much shame with their chronic pain. And I was like, okay, I can do that. And so that's when I started doing that because they don't teach you sex therapy in graduate school when you're studying to be a therapist.
Really?
No, you have to get certified. It's like equivalent to a master's degree.
How many years is
like
the certification?
2 years.
Oh shit!
Like
shit,
2
shit.
years.
Well, that's
So-
good. I mean that.
Yeah.
God, I can't. Still cannot imagine all that ground being covered in only 2 years. There's so much. To
There's
sex.
so much. So as therapists, I mean, the great thing about this profession too is that we're always learning.
Yeah.
I'm always learning. Like a client will come in and throw out a term and I'm like splooshing. And I'm like, what is that? You know?
Yeah.
Or I would have a teenager come in and say, yeah, this girl at school, she has a blue waffle.
Is that a pussy?
It is.
A waffle?
But it's one that doesn't take care of itself. You don't want to Google blue waffle. Don't do it. But I had a teenager come in one day.
You know, everyone just paused the episode to Google blue waffle.
Like, Dr. Lee, this girl at school has a blue waffle.
What the fuck?
And I was like,
okay, that's not how we talk about women's vaginas.
Exactly. And I was like, well, what is that? And then I Googled it and it was.
What is a teenage boy doing in sex therapy? I mean, honestly, that's
Well,
very
he wasn't in
progressive.
sex therapy. He was coming because of his behavioral issues.
And then the blue waffle came out.
And then it came up, right?
Right.
But that's what's great about this profession is that we're always learning and we're just always trying to grow and we love working with different people. That's why I specialize in different things just so I'm like a sponge sometimes.
Yeah, you're hungry for human experiences.
Exactly. And it's great. That's what's great about the work is that, you know, I can still use my acting ability sometimes to engage and.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of acting in therapy, like not making a face when people say shit to you.
Oh, it's hard.
You need a good poker face.
Well, when you have somebody coming who's just, I imagine you've had at least one client in your lifetime that's spoiled and entitled and can't see the forest through the trees.
Oh, all the time.
But,
There's a lot
it's
of
in
them.
New York. Yeah. So, like, how the fuck do you get through to somebody like that? Because if anybody's going to get through to somebody like that, it's not their family, it's not their romantic partner, it's their fucking therapist.
Well, you put one foot into their world and you keep your other foot out.
Right. Right.
You kind of have to feed it a little bit. Oh,
Yeah.
that must have been tough. Yeah, I hear you. But then I'm thinking, all right, and then you can start to challenge a little bit at times.
See how they react.
Yeah, well, once you form a good relationship with them, then you can challenge them. You can call them out on their shit sometimes.
Right.
And clients like that.
Yeah.
They don't want someone who's going to just like be passive all the time. They want someone who's going to call them out.
Unless you're
know?
like would a narcissistic person, like with the true narcissistic personality disorder, come to you to just get validated? Has that ever happened?
It's rare that they do that because they feel they don't need it.
they don't think they need
It's
therapy.
rare that a narcissist comes in, and then if they do come in, my chair backs up a little bit. I'm like, ooh, I think I know what you are. But what's interesting is that sometimes with personality disorders, you don't see it until later on in therapy.
Oh, because they're good at hiding it.
Yeah,
It's like dating, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
You're like, oh, I didn't see that 2 years
I'm already
ago.
invested. God
Right. So
damn
they're,
it.
you know, but you know what? I love challenging people.
Yeah.
So, and you know what? They need help too because a lot of people.
Well, it's a defense mechanism,
It is
right?
a defense mechanism. Most people with personality disorders, they have a history of trauma.
Yeah.
So they need help, right? And so that's where we come in.
Yeah, it's
You
so
know?
funny. You know, people go, the same thing could happen. You could get an emotionally manipulative parent, tale as old as time. And you get the kid, you know, it depends on who the kid is, of course, but like you can go one way or the other. You can develop a form of narcissism because you didn't get the love you need. So you just need to have yourself in this holier than thou position, this entitled way that you walk around life. Or you can be a people pleaser and just fucking bend over backwards to any goddamn Joe Schmo that looks at you.
Which a lot of people do. Sometimes they get.
What do you say to those people?
Well, you know, I think the first thing to do is most people pleasers have very low self-esteem. They don't even think about themselves. They think about other people. So one of the things that we have to focus on is, what do you like?
Right.
What do you like when it comes to pleasure? What do you like when it comes to your life? Like, what are your values? What do you want?
Right.
You know, often what happens is someone will bring something to a people pleaser and say, here you go, I made you this. Oh, well, I made you this.
Oh.
And it's like, you don't have to make them anything. Let them
say thank you and accept it.
Say thank you and accept it. And it's really hard.
Yeah.
People pleasers also have a lot of shame. So that's the defense mechanism, is to please, because they're covered in shame.
Yeah,
I always call it the shame monster. It shows up and you either got to like attack it and let it and defeat it sometimes, or let it come in, let the shame monster do its thing, and then let it go.
Yeah.
You know, but people pleasers, they need a lot of healing too.
Yeah, they do.
So it always comes up. But, you know, I mean, that's what's great about this field, is that there's always help out there with the right therapist, you know, that you can gel with.
Yeah, I imagine as a people pleaser, if you engage in like as a dom, I wonder if that would do anything. That's a huge role reversal.
Oh, yeah. No, it can be empowering. I've actually had a client one time that did that.
Damn.
And it was empowering, you know. And it's also great too, like if there has been like infidelity in a relationship, what I find rewarding is when a couple stays together and they're like, well, how can we make our sex life great now? So they may open up their relationship after cheating. Everyone thinks that
interesting.
You know, it's like
opening up, meaning like going to see other people, like seeing other
or
people
they
sexually?
swing together, or some type of non-monogamy, you know, because they may be having some things that they're very interested in, but they never talk about it.
Right. I think my very first boyfriend cheated on me. I was 16, but I was so devastated. And I think I developed a cuck queen, I guess, kink, because I'm like, if I'm on control of it, this is very enjoyable because now nothing's wrong.
Right. Yeah. So you can explore that with each other.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of couples that do that after cheating. They may swing together, or they may have their own partners if that's what they want to engage in. But they have to have some type of an agreement. And I help them form those too.
Yeah, you were talking that a topic that's been coming up a lot is like polyamory and open relationships. So is it most often after cheating, or people just coming in cold? Like, what are the reasons people come in and start talking about those topics?
Sometimes it's a combination of both. Sometimes there's been some type of rupture in the relationship. There's been some type of cheating. So now they're coming in and they're wanting to open up their relationship now because they know that this has happened and one partner may desire something different.
Yeah.
So that's why they may want to come in and explore what does that look like to them.
Yeah.
And then you've got people that come in that have been together for years and their sex is just boring as fuck.
Yeah.
You know, and they're like,
and then
we
what
do
do you
the
tell them?
same thing over
What
and
do you
over
tell them?
again. Well, then we work on, well, why don't you try to spice it up and do this? And then they do that. And they're like, yeah, but I'm like, you want to sleep with somebody else, don't you?
Well,
We're thinking about it, but we don't know what that looks like. And am I going to get jealous? And I'm like, look, anytime someone goes into non-monogamy, expect yourself to get jealous.
yeah, it's okay. You're going to get jealous if you're monogamous.
Of course.
You're going to get probably arguably more jealous if you're monogamous.
All the time. And so we just direct them and help them open that up. The bad thing is that when I have people come in that have already been open and they come in and there's been like lies, or they haven't respected the boundary. And then I will often say, well, did you have an agreement? Well, no, we never had one. Well, that's your problem, you know?
Right.
Boundaries are more flexible than rules.
Right.
But they may break those, and then there's this distrust, and I don't know if we should keep our relationship open, but it's really hard to close it back up after you've opened it.
Yes, I know. And that's why, because like, there's a lot of people who write in and, you know, it's not that we're like not believing in polyamory or open relationships, as the TikTok comments would say. It's more just like people are trying to do what I would consider is like a next level. It's the next level in Mario Brothers to me is polyamory. You have to kind of like master, I feel like you have to master monogamy, or not, you know, to get to the next level. And there's like these 22-year-olds writing us in that they're polyamorous, and I'm just going, no, you're not. Like, I just know you're not. Like,
no,
it's such a complex thing, and
it is complex,
and you need to be so good at communication.
Emotional intelligence.
Yes,
a lot of it, and you have to have a nice foundation.
Right?
Yeah. It doesn't matter if you've been together for like 2 years. You can be together for 2 years and open something up if you've got that foundation. That's what my husband and I did after 3 years. I was at a bar with him and I'm like, I love you, but I want to explore things. And he was like, well, shit, I'm glad you said something first.
Oh, wow. That worked out.
And then I tried to close it up. I got jealous. I said, I don't think we can do this. And he said, well, I'm not going back. And I said, well, shit, I got to get my shit together.
Well, so, that probably touched your stuff. Like when you got jealous.
So like, it touched my stuff.
Yeah.
And,
Well, why it's interesting. And Dan Savage talks about this a lot, making fun of straight people, but it just seems like the gay community, especially gay men, have really mastered open relationships in a way that heterosexual people have failed to. And why do you have insight on that?
You know what?
Help us.
It's so fascinating. I know. I just taught a class yesterday, therapy with LGBTQ plus clients, and I talked about that. I said, if you're going to be working with gay men, expect that they may be non-monogamous. Yeah. They may be involved in kink. There's something I think that they are just very confident about with their sexuality.
Yeah. And what Dan's also cited, he's like, everyone's not a gay man. There's not a lot of us. So if I claim you and I say you can't fuck him because I fucked him a lot, then I'm claiming half of the population in our town, perhaps.
Exactly. There's something that is more relaxed about it. That's more calm about it. They feel like I think they can talk to each other better. I think you're also dealing with two people that are actually the same sex. I mean, not saying that women and men are so different from each other.
We're socialized differently,
but they're socialized differently. And I think that's what it is. I think there's a lot of...
It fucks us up. I can't believe straight men and women get along, to be honest.
Oh, I know. It really does. And men are portrayed, straight men are portrayed as one way, and so are women, right?
And it's damaging.
It's very damaging. I work with a lot of couples where they struggle to communicate, and a lot of times they do it because the male client always has this toxic masculinity thing that he's been taught, and the female client has always been taught to be a certain way, so they clash when it comes to communicating. So I think it has a lot to do with that. But I mean, I have worked with, gay male clients where they've had an issue with opening things up, where they're very jealous in the beginning. And so we have to work through those emotions.
You have to breathe through it.
Yeah. And sometimes people, I think during COVID, we saw people close things back up, which was like really hard.
You couldn't really fuck anybody
do
else.
it. You couldn't do it, right?
Yeah.
And so that was difficult. But now that we're living in this pandemic, I mean, people are getting back out there. They're communicating more and they're exploring that. But I have found that gay men are more successful in it. They come into therapy. Gay couples come into therapy because they want to do more fun and exciting sexual things sometimes, or they're just having like bitch fights and communication issues. I mean,
that's the medical term for it.
That happens too.
Therapeutic psychology term.
They're mad. They'll come in and say, well, I'm jealous of his haircut. And he's like, well, I'm jealous of the clothes that he's wearing.
That's so funny.
And I'm like, well,
You guys,
come on. Let's talk about that.
But a middleman for a fight like that, it's like, you're just doing this. Stop it. You do need a referee sometimes.
You do. I think a mediator does. We do come in sometimes and we help, just this. Are you hearing him talk right now? And help them validate each other. Validating is not agreeing with your partner. It's just making sense of how they feel.
Yeah.
And I think people struggle with that, and I think relationships could succeed more if they actually listened to what they were saying to each other.
I know. What are the kind of examples that you've been presented with straight men and toxic masculinity, and how have you ushered them through that?
That's a really good question. Really just giving them the space to let it out.
Ooh, that's
and
rough.
Really
Somebody needs to give them the space. I'm glad it's you.
Yeah.
Because I don't have the patience, but you're right.
Yeah, they don't need it from their partner can't do it.
Yeah, and it's the ego thing that's like, I'm not fucking helping walk you through this bullshit.
But if they come in and they can just let it out a little bit. And the insecurity. The whole goal of therapy is just processing. That's all it is. We're taught in school to use this model and do this. And every time a client comes in, make sure you're doing this. And I'm like, fuck that. I'm just holding a space.
Yeah.
And really see where we can get to. And when I find that I let them guide it sometimes and I sit back, they love that. I don't talk too much, and I used to be so uncomfortable with silence in therapy.
Oh, yeah. My therapist actually made me comfortable with silence because she was very comfortable in it. I'm like, wait, that's weird. Do you want me to say something? Do you even like me? I don't even know if I should be here.
But I think healing that with them, it's allowing them to come in and talk about how they grew up with that toxic masculinity and how it's presented a problem and how they can be more flexible in their thinking and that it's okay to be vulnerable and it's not a weakness.
Yeah.
And you don't have to put up the front all the time. And then when you can crack that with them, man, it's like the floodgates open in therapy.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Have you had straight guy clients just straight up say like, I saw my dad do this, or I was taught that? Like,
absolutely.
Any specifics that have blown you like, wow, that is brutal. Like,
yeah, I mean, I've had people before that have endured so much abuse from a parent where they've been beaten, or they were told, if you don't get it together, you're going to be out of the house. I mean, there was years ago where I actually had a patient where his father made him get on his knees, and on his knees, under his knees, were popcorn kernels.
oh.
So the trauma from that to be a man.
Wait, what did that symbolize? Like, what was that? What was he trying to say with that?
I think he was trying to get him to fight through his pain.
That would be very painful to lean. Being on your knees to
Your
begin
kneecap
with
is very delicate.
hurts. You know,
It
Blowjob
does.
is a job.
Yes, it is. They don't call it a job for nothing. honey. That's for sure. I
so
mean,
anything under there, would be very painful.
very painful.
Just to prove himself, so that he could
to
fight
prove
through
himself,
pain?
and then to be able to have them come in and being able to just talk about that and the experience. That's the healing part. Like what we were talking about earlier, you have to get through the tough parts to get to the healing.
Sure.
And when you can do that work, I mean, it's empowering.
Yeah.
So I feel like some dads think like they're running their own boot camp in the house or something. It's just like,
Yep.
What? This is not. This is not Olympic training.
Yeah.
Right.
Teaching your kid how to run away from themselves.
Right. So we try to work with people so they can be more flexible, so they don't have to be like that when they're dads. And a lot of times when they come in, they don't want to be like their parents. They're like, I don't want my son to look at me that way. I want to be a good parent to my child. So we talk about what does that look like. So there's a lot that goes into that. But
do you ever have people come in with the sexual desires that are illegal?
absolutely, they may have fantasies about things, and know what? That's their fantasy. People have fantasies, right? I mean, so many people have them, and they don't share them because of that reason, right?
Sure. It could be a healthy way to fantasize.
It could be a healthy way to fantasize and to really be able to just keep it inside. But in sex therapy or just in therapy, they can open up about it, and it can be validated for them, because if they go to a different type of therapist that's not sex positive or kink aware, they may not be able to share that.
And are you obligated to report?
If they're acting on something, I mean, it could be. I mean, as a therapist, we have the duty to warn and to report if certain things come up. Fortunately, I haven't had someone come in and say, well, I'm actually doing this. They may talk about the fantasy in their head, or at least they're not telling me.
Yeah, right.
Have you ever had to tackle someone saying, I'm attracted to minors? Because I mean, that's something that we talk about a lot on this show, and there's so few therapists willing to even hear that.
Which is
it is a disservice. I mean, I would be open to. I haven't had anyone talk about that in therapy, but I would be open to it.
Yeah,
if they did
they need somebody to fucking.
They need somebody to talk to. Yeah, they need to be able to talk about it. And so I think there's this judgment, of course, that goes into that. But if you can hold space for that and let them talk about that, because if they go to a certified sex offender practitioner or a certified sex therapist or certified sex addiction therapist, which there's no evidence base that sex addiction therapy works, and you can't diagnose it. They need to see someone who.
Sorry, I was just really patting myself on the back.
Yeah. She was just talking about how sex addiction is kind of bullshit.
Oh my gosh, it's awful. It's so pathological and it's terrible.
That's exactly what she said.
Well,
in so few words.
Well, the thing is, there's very few things that I know a lot about, but I mean, we've been doing this show for almost a decade at this point. So it's just, we've talked to a lot of people, and it's just one of those things that's come up that enough really well-educated, studied people that I trust have said, I don't think so to sex addiction, and enough narcissists have said that they suffer from it.
Real.
That it's real. I came to my own conclusion.
Right.
However, did you do that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not taking. I'm like, to people who say that, I go, yeah, I'm sure something's wrong. It's just you're blaming it on this other thing that I feel feels easier to say, because labeling something as an addiction or disease, like you go, oh, I can put it in a box. I understand what it is now. I'm sick, and I just don't think. I just that's
you're
why
stepping into this victim role that doesn't do anything to benefit you, to propel you out of the situation.
Absolutely, that is the biggest thing about it right there. Is that you can come to a certified sex therapist that is sex positive and be able to talk about sexual compulsivity in a way that's not going to shame you or judge you.
Right.
Because one of the things that I do is if I have a client that comes to me with sexual compulsivity, I do like an erotic assessment. Like
what's an erotic assessment?
Like where you just ask them certain things that they're into.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they'll say, yeah, but I haven't had the opportunity to try that. Or when I did cheat, I would go out and do that. Because it's something that I wanted to do, but
the energy's got to go somewhere.
The energy's got to go somewhere, but I couldn't tell my significant other about that.
Yeah.
So we normalize it, and it's like, okay, we talk about healthy sexuality because we do know that some of these behaviors, they can go out and there's some consequences that can happen with STIs, or they are in a monogamous relationship and they're not telling their other partner. And so it's always great when they do come out about it and their other partner is like, hey, I'm here to support you.
Yeah.
I know there's behaviors, so why don't we work on this?
Yeah, there's so much. I love the 4 agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz, and the one agreement that is so relevant to everything you've been talking about is not taking things personally, even when it's our romantic partner, and it feels like the most fucking personal goddamn thing that anybody could ever on this fucking planet do to us.
Yeah.
And it's still not personal, which is wild, because when you were talking about an open relationship and you were saying, your partner was like, I want to open. You're like, oh, me too. There is this, and maybe it's in the male gay community is just more understanding of this, but you can want to fuck somebody and it has nothing to do with how much you love your partner.
It has nothing to do with
Which is I know that's true, but it does feel wild.
Oh, it does. It does feel wild because a lot of people say, well, why do you want to go out and do that when you have me?
Right. Well, that's why a cuckolding kink is so interesting, because when you watch your boyfriend that you're in love with fuck a hot chick in front of you, you're like, I'm facing this shit, huh? Like, it's wild. It's really therapeutic.
It is therapeutic. And I think people have different desires and different needs and different fantasies.
Yeah.
And I just think it's great when we can normalize it and we can talk about it in a setting that's not going to shame them or judge them.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times after they talk about it, they're like, that's all I needed.
Nice.
I just need to talk about it.
Yeah.
I don't have to go out here and do this and do that. I've been able to talk about it with you, and I can fantasize about it and masturbate.
Yeah, which is awesome. Yeah, that's why I say to everybody too, like when you're thinking of a crazy kink or like a crazy kink or something, that's incorporate it into your dirty talk, like baby steps.
Yeah, you don't have to immediately run out and do it.
Exactly. You don't have to run into the fire.
Right. But then,
because there's a lot of, I feel like we have something about us makes a lot of people who listen to the show very impulsive. So, anytime there's a lot of people feel a certain way, or we have a certain type of listener that seems to be like larger numbers, I look within because I go, this is something that we're attracting.
Yeah, for sure.
Obviously.
We are, yeah.
And, sometimes it's not a good look in the mirror.
Correct.
Right.
So as far as like kind of not taking it personally, how do you feel that way, or how do you talk to a client who's been cheated on? Because I think for me, learning that being cheated on, like to not take it personally, that was great. That was such an eye opener.
Right. I think it's great when you can get to that point where they don't have to take it personally. So what I always talk about, there are reasons why people cheat. People usually just don't wake up and go, you know what, I'm going to hurt my partner today and go fuck somebody else.
Yeah.
There's something going on in the relationship or with them. And often when we start to dig it up, there is a disconnection going on between two people, right? Whether there's an emotional disconnection, there's a sexual disconnection. Usually it's not a sexual it's not a sexual disconnection.
An emotional disconnection.
It's an emotional. There's something going on that's caused a rupture in the partnership. There could be some gaslighting that is going on. Like, oh, you're too sensitive. I don't do that to you. Get over it.
When someone, both times that I've been cheated on, the guy was like, you're insane. Why would you, how dare you accuse me of that? When that's exactly what they were doing. I'm like, you motherfucker.
So it's like there's something going on with that person, not necessarily with you. And that's why we have to get to a place where you don't have to take it so personal, because a lot of times they're not cheating because it's you. There's something going on within them. But often it is something going on with that partner.
Yeah.
And when people can be accountable and say, you know what, I was shaming you, I was gaslighting you, I was unfair to you, no wonder why you went out and maybe did some of this. That's why I love it when people can get back together and they can actually work on the relationship instead of ending it.
Yeah, because you express what you need to express through unhealthy ways. Like nagging, I think, is like a typical behavioral pattern within a relationship, that it's like you're not expressing what you fucking need to express right now. It's just coming out as nagging. But that'll turn somebody off.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you're judging your partner all the time and you're yelling at them and you are nagging at them, yeah, I mean, they can get resentful.
Yeah.
And you back them into a corner. They may go out and do something, right? Mm-hmm. But I think the goal is to work on that before it gets to them doing that. And unfortunately, people end up in my office after the math, but then they learn something from it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they can learn to be accountable and be responsible in their relationship. But then you do have relationships where someone goes out and cheats and the relationship was going well and you're like, well, what happened?
Yeah.
Well, sometimes there's just so many people who like to mess up a good thing.
Right. Self-sabotage.
Because they don't want to wait, because they don't want to wait for that bad thing to happen, because you feel so out of control and so anxious to wait for the bad thing. So you're like, I'm just going to make the bad thing.
So we call that like a can opener affair. Where it's like they do it for a reason because they're not happy,
and that's how they communicate it.
That's how they communicate it.
That's what happened to Mrs. Leary on Dawson's Creek, just everything was going too well. So she just had to fuck her colleague. That's obviously a really relatable.
Right. Yeah.
Well, yeah, no, because something with the instance that I was cheated on, it was like someone who I had literally been trying to dump for months. And so when it clicked in my head, I was like, oh, well, he just took back control by being like, we're going to do this on my terms. But then I found out about the cheating later. So I'm like, it was just like something like control that he needed within, not even necessarily control that he needed to like splash in my face. Yeah. So like I actually understood completely why he did it. I was like, but just like, why'd you like lie to me? Like because I figured it out and I said, did you cheat on me? And he goes, no. And I was like,
you fucking did.
Like, but like, I wouldn't have even been upset had you told me then. It was finding out so much later and finding out from someone who wasn't him that was the part that upset me.
That's the part that's always upsetting.
Yeah.
So when I talk to the other partner that's been cheated on, that's what always comes out. It's like if he or she or they would have just told me, then I wouldn't have gotten so resentful and mad and angry. And
otherwise, you're a pawn for their inner pain.
Well, you kind of just feel like a jackass when you find out from someone else. You feel embarrassed.
Oh my gosh.
You go,
embarrassed.
Yeah, and that's the problem. And no one likes to feel embarrassed.
No one likes to feel that way, right? When you got to find it out, or if you find out the stuff on your own, if you go through the phone or you go online and you see it.
It sucks when like women have an intuition where it's like,
do they ever?
Do they ever? Yo,
you guys,
tell. I know it's annoying.
Oh, you guys got it. But I also fucking love it.
But
I'm like, call him out, bitch.
But when you know,
call him out.
But let me tell you something. What do you do
I
when
hope you do that in therapy, because I'll come.
When you, as a woman, and I've been in this position when you know, but you don't have hard evidence, so you're like, well, what the fuck do I do now? I don't want to snoop.
That's when they come to me.
And what do you say?
Snoop. No.
Yeah, do you? But I mean, the times that I have, every time I had an inkling, I go, I'm going to look in the phone and I know exactly where to look and I'm going to find exactly, and I always do.
You're going to always find the bad stuff when you have the
I
inkling.
do say trust your gut instinct. If you can talk to your partner more and try to get it out of them, do
and
it.
if they gaslight you, then I say snoop, to be honest. Because fuck that shit. Don't stand up for your own.
Well, a lot of times they are. That's their way to defend themselves.
Right.
And some people do unconscious gaslighting. They don't know they're even doing it.
Really?
Yeah, I had a journalist interview me this morning on it. And the thing of it is that there's a lot of unconscious gaslighting.
People are really afraid of the truth.
People are afraid, and they will say, oh my gosh, you're being so sensitive. I didn't do that to you. And it's like, you just gaslit me. What does that mean?
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Oh, right. And they genuinely don't have bad intentions.
This goes back to emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
A lot. They don't know, and they don't know it from childhood.
Yeah, and you can gain emotional intelligence. You just need the fucking words, right?
You need the words. You need to do the work. You need to listen when someone's trying to like, instead of call you out, sometimes call you in.
Yeah. Oh,
and say, this is what we need to talk about here. Let me call you in and just say, this is what happened. And then you can like learn maybe something from it.
Yeah.
So you can gain the emotional intelligence. You can pass that on to other relationships. But then you just have full-blown narcissists that just gaslight all the time.
Yeah. And you're like, you can't get through.
Yeah.
I love the calling in because I just wanted to talk about kind of like celebrity relationships. Obviously, the Amber Heard, Johnny Depp trial is going on right now. But beyond that, I think we've seen, as part of the reemergence of the Me Too movement, we've also seen a lot of people being, quote, called out for emotional abuse. And that's so hard because it's like, I feel like almost in every relationship that you're in, you emotionally abuse each other. So when does it like cross that line of like, this is something that we should be being talked about? This is a dangerous man or a woman to be around. This should ruin your career. Because as much as I am on board with speaking up and like the authorities not doing enough for rape victims, I'm starting to get nervous now that like, because labeling someone an emotional abuser feels heavy when in reality, basically every relationship I've been in, I've done it and someone has done it to me. And because like as much as I hate like some of my exes, really one I never want to say anything publicly that will actually get him in like legal trouble because I don't feel that he needs to,
Right. Yeah.
Like I'm always like very careful about what I say, which is not great considering what I've said. Just imagine how much more there is.
Right. Tip of the it's called tip of the iceberg, baby.
But I because I don't feel that way. And I just talking about it a lot because I obviously am not done processing it. And that's like the point of this show.
Right. I like that you're saying that. I think the thing of it is that what it comes down to is that partners, they hurt each other and they heal each other. So there is this interesting dynamic that always happens between them. And I think you're right. I mean, I think a lot of times partners can emotionally abuse each other.
Yeah.
I think when it becomes a problem, when it's this continuous thing over and over again, and people just cannot literally take it anymore. And that's when they finally do something about it, when they should do something earlier. Right.
Advocate for themselves.
But there's this continuous thing. And what really drains me is if I get a couple or people in relationships and they're not changing, they just let it keep happening. And I'm like, when are you going to actually do something about this?
Yeah.
And I've told people before, I think you need to separate. I say it.
Good.
I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. I'm like, and I have on my website, like, I will work with you, but it's your responsibility on what you want to do with your relationship.
Right.
I'm not here to fix anyone. And I think people come into therapy thinking
people go into
make anything work. Yeah.
People go into relationships as a distraction to their own pain or
oh
loneliness.
my gosh, say that again.
That's 90% of romantic relationships.
Oh my gosh.
When you are relying on a person to distract you from your own pain and they're not doing their jobs in your head, that's when shit pops up. But that's so many relationships.
All the time.
You have to be whole before you stop into one. And I learned that from The Untethered Soul. This is my favorite fucking book in the world.
Yeah. No, it's
Love
true.
Michael Singer.
That's what happens. They have someone come into their life to try to help heal their own pain.
Yeah.
Or the person is going to help them cope with it. And that's not why you get into a relationship.
Right.
But that's what people will do. It's empowering when you can do your own work.
Right.
But I don't think people have had that opportunity.
Yeah, it's crazy. I wanted to ask if you have anything to say about the Madonna-Whore complex.
Oh my gosh.
Because boy, have I run into that.
Boy, do I run into it too all the time.
Could you explain what it is? And then,
really, it's
I'm the whore.
I'm a
She's the Madonna.
I'm a slut. Well, what happens is that, men, it just happens in like cisgender heterosexual relationships where
I concur.
The wife is like everything to a man. They love her. He loves her. She does everything in the home. She's like the perfect person. And then the sex starts dwindling off because the companionship always trumps the sex and eroticism.
Right.
And so it's like that glorified roommate. And so then it's like they can see a woman who's in the heels, who's very cocky, who's beautiful and knows a lot about herself and who's confident, where they don't see that in their wife. And they want that. It's like there's the whore, that's the drive, that's the eroticism.
The thing is, like, I feel like the women at the opposite ends of the receiving end rather of these Madonna whore, they're like, I'll be the whore.
Oh,
both a whore and I'm a Madonna. Like
You're too eager. You're saying I'll be the whore the way a Madonna would say it.
Right.
Even there, you're just like, let me get you a sandwich. I'll be the, like
Yes,
whores aren't saying I'll be the whores. Whores are like, get the fuck away from me.
Let me get you a sandwich and I'll be naked when I do it, darling.
Right,
and then
right,
the husband's like, hell no, let me go out and do the whore down the street with the hot outfit on, And I think the husband or the male partner just has a really difficult time still seeing it.
Yeah.
But you know what I do find sometimes? It is nice when they can spice things up and they can do something different, because I had a friend that went through this and she'd be happy that I talk about it real quick. She found her husband one night literally masturbating at his laptop. Well, she walks out and she was going to the bathroom. She went to bed early and he was up with the lights off and she saw him do something. And he slammed the laptop down and she goes, "What are you looking at?" And he goes, "Nothing." She goes,
Shut the fuck up.
So she goes back to bed, and the next day she goes, "I really want to know what you were looking at. I'm not gonna judge you.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna shame you." And he goes, "I don't know if I want to tell you," and because porn can be very personal. And she's like, "Just tell me." And he goes, "I have a thing for women that wear cheap 80s yoga pants, cheetah print to be exact."
Interesting.
So then one day he goes to work. And she goes to Walmart and she buys some like cheetah print yoga pants. And he comes home and she's got him on and he got so turned on. And it really helped their sex life.
Yeah.
Because he kept looking at her as like prim and proper and she's the mom and everything. But it really helped them.
Yeah. That's the fairy tale.
Of course, I was the first person that, she called, because it was like, you're the sex therapist and my friend, so I got to tell you what happened.
Yeah.
So it's nice.
What do you think about? I read a quote the other day that said basically like you'll keep meeting the same person again and again in your life until you learn the lesson.
Ouch.
What do you think of that? Like, because I feel like so often we talk about like women and men having like a type that we go after that's bad for us. I like guys who are bad for me. Is there a lesson we're supposed to be learning? Like, just we deserve more? I mean,
well, my thing is that I think it's in the unconscious. I think we choose partners based on the positive and negative characteristics of our caretakers.
You're telling me. Say that 8
so
times.
It's like that's our drive. It's like it's what we know.
Well, it kinda, when somebody keeps going back to a toxic person, to me, that's like, okay, there's still something there for you to learn. If you're still attracted to that, then there's pain. There's pain for you to be had to face,
right,
and then move on from it. Because because I have experienced like I'm not attracted to that kind. Like I used to be my ex-boyfriend of 7 years had a very grumpy demeanor. He was never satisfied. He was egocentric about all of his opinions, and that was a type of guy that I really loved. And now I'm just, after I broke up with him and I kind of understood the roots, I'm like, I am not attracted to that personality. Oh my fucking God. Ugh. So you do get unattracted, I feel like, when the lesson's been learned in a way.
When you can learn it, and I think that does take some time. And so when someone comes into therapy and they say, I keep dating the same people. Well, where did that start? What goes on in your body? What comes up for you? What comes up with your emotions? So you have to like dig. I always think of therapy like an iceberg. You get the tip of it and then you got to go deep. And so we find out it's usually from childhood. And I will have a lot of patients that come in and they're like, it's because that's how my mom was or my dad was.
Yeah.
And we find that out. Or you want someone completely different from your family.
Yeah, because I was like, I see very much like my mom and my dad in my friends, but in my partners, I just like addicts, and like no one in my parents aren't. No one in my family is one person, but it's not really super close related.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, I just and I think like it's like because I misread like addiction as like I kind of interpret it as like you're really passionate about something, and that is ultimately what I'm looking for. I like you're gonna go all in, but like I'm really passionate about like success and. Like, then they're really passionate about like drinking Stoli at 10 a.m.
Yeah.
So and you're like, why do I keep doing this to myself?
Right. Yeah, there's just something about addicts. And they don't even have to be like active addicts. It could be recovering addicts, just anyone. Basically everyone I've ever dated.
Well, they're successful just in a different way.
Yeah, it's true. Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, they're successful in something. And you're successful in what your drive is and what you want.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. I think that, there's a drive there. There's an energy there that they're doing. And so you're seeing that.
Yeah.
So
I also like, how do you stop? Like, I have this problem where like when someone says something, I'll believe them. Like if someone's like, if someone like, Like so a big problem is I can't read the difference between like faux confidence and real confidence.
I think you have a radar for that when people are full of shit. You call out people being full of shit before I do.
I can do full of shit, but like so often with like men that I date, like because like that's like basically the one thing, the most important core thing I need is I need you to love yourself because I can't do that workshop for you again. And I'm like, sometimes it'll take like 2 years for me to realize this person didn't really love themselves.
Yeah.
Maybe they're really good at the facade.
Right.
They
like,
could be just really good at it.
They want to be that, yeah.
They want to be that, right? It can be really
people
hard
are really chameleons, man.
I hate when people adjust like to be the person that you want them to be. I'm like, no, just be who you actually are.
Be who you are, yeah. And
It's so frustrating.
They
It's
struggle
not
with
as
that.
easy as it's said.
They want to be accepted
Yeah.
the way that you want them to be. You
Right.
know?
And then ultimately when I find out that's not who they are, then I really hate them.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You
You
feel
know?
betrayed. You were sold this
Or
version
you feel
of themselves.
betrayed. You see what's happened. You finally learn what's happened.
Is there a way to tell quicker?
A blood test?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would love that. Can you
A
spit
bullshit
into this
monitor?
too, please?
Yeah.
23andMe, get on it.
What time were you born and what was the North Node in the star?
Right. What was happening there? You know, it is really hard. I think people take risk in relationships.
Yeah.
It's like you take the risk and then you're like, all right, let's do this. And then when it happens, you're like, damn it, again.
That's one thing that I realize about myself that I do give myself a pat on the back. I ain't afraid of heartache. Ooh, I'll walk into that heartache.
You know what?
With eyes wide open.
I think maybe when you know that about yourself, that's empowering because you're like, all right, I'm going to go through with this.
I'm going to give this person a chance.
I'm going to give them a chance.
They might let me down, but
relationships are so complicated. I should have stuck to acting and bartending.
I know, man.
How did you know that your husband was gonna want, like, you wanted him to be your husband?
Oh my gosh. You know, it's really funny. Like I moved to DC because I had to get the hell out of where I was living, which is like Hampton Roads, Virginia.
Oh, yes. I grew up in Virginia Beach, Chesapeake.
What?
Yeah,
I did
757.
too. I grew up in Chesapeake.
Great Bridge.
I grew up in Western Branch.
No.
Okay.
Yo. Great Bridge.
Western Branch.
Western Branch. That's crazy.
Oh my God.
We have Marymount, Manhattan. Wild.
I know. Wild. So I got on an app. I think I was on Scruff or Grindr.
What the Scruff?
It was Scruff I got on. Of course, none of the guys like me on there because I'm queer and they're all bald-headed and bearded.
Okay.
So, you know,
also queer, though.
yeah, but they're like scruffy.
They're bare?
You're more like Kesha Cruz. I get it.
Yeah, exactly.
I understand.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Right.
now my
I tried to describe.
No, she's good at
I tried to describe to people the Kesha Cruz, and I go, it was queer,
Specific.
not gay, and it's different, and you just have to, you just know.
Yeah, you know. So he hits me up and we start chatting. And he's like, by the way, I'm in an open relationship with my husband. And I was like, well, I can't do that. Block. Because at that time I was a little, I was trying to be a good boy from Hampton. From Hampton Roads.
Dude, I do.
So I
say
blocked
no
him.
more.
So 2 months later, I went through my block list, and so I unblocked him.
Oh, that's good. I should go through my block list.
That's a good way to find a mate, everyone. Go through
your unblock
felt
list.
abused by.
So I hit him up, and I said, I'm really sorry. I think I made a mistake. And he's like, well, my husband and I are getting divorced. I said, do you want to go out?
Oh, serendipity.
So I met him at a gay bar in DC called Trade. I walk in, and I got to go to the bathroom. I got to pee so bad. And I'm going to the bathroom, and he says my name, and I turn around and looked at him. I've been with him since.
Wow.
Started living together 2 months after dating.
That reminds me of Dan Savage and Terry. Like when he describes, like they met, it was a one night stand, and he was like, "You forever," and I've never been apart.
Oh my gosh, he had to go back to work to DC like last week because they made him go back in. He works for the federal government, and when he left with our 2 dogs, it crushed the hell out of me. It was gutting, and then he got word that he only has to go in 2 days a week, every other week, which is good.
Oh, that's great.
Because we split our time between Northern Virginia and New York. We do both places, and so I have a practice there and here, so it works out nice. But we're just very close. It just works. We're very different. He's introverted. Nice. I'm extroverted. I love the limelight. He can't stand it.
Oh, that's kind of nice.
That's what you need. Yeah.
I don't need someone who wants to show me up, because I want to. I want to be the show.
You need someone who wants to be the star, and then someone who's just like happy
spotlight.
And he wants me to have it. He's like, Dr. Lee, go do this. Go do it. Go do it.
Nice. That's great.
And it works, So it's a great relationship. And we're very open with each other. I talk about sex all damn day. Sometimes I don't want it.
Right. Right. Yeah.
You know, I mean,
Thank you. That's what I've been
It's like,
saying.
it's like that episode of Friends where Rachel was dating a gynecologist, but at the time she was working at the cafe, and he was like trying to explain to her, he's like, you know, when you come home from a day of work and you're like, if I see one more cup of coffee, and she's like, oh man, but yeah, you have to be honest. You have to be honest
all
about
the time, like 9 a.m. to sometimes 9 p.m. It's sex.
Yeah.
Which is fun, but
Yeah.
it's exhausting though too. But he's so great. I come home, my dogs run up to me, and he's got dinner made, and I go take a shower. He doesn't try to go. So he lets me go in because
space.
my brain, I got so
need
many
to decompress.
got stories in my head, man.
Yeah.
I love someone who greets you quietly.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, it's so
silent
nice.
greeting.
Yeah. So
Where can we find more of you? Where would you like to promote?
You know, I'm on IG at Dr. Lee Phillips. I'm on Facebook at Dr. Lee Phillips. You can always hit me up, drleephillips@gmail.com. If you want to reach out to me, I check my email religiously all the time. It pings me, and I'm always looking at it. So yeah,
Nice.
you can hit me up anytime. I do have a social media manager now, so please watch what you message me.
Oh, okay.
Because she does
nudes?
no nudes. And someone sent me a
nudes.
nude the other day.
You're
and
a
I was
therapist.
on Instagram, on IG.
Oh,
you know what's really bad is
man.
when you get a nude on LinkedIn.
Oh, you get a nude on LinkedIn? What the fuck?
Did one
The problem is men. You know what I mean? Like, they ruin
So they
everything.
think that I can,
Jesus.
you know, it's
dick okay?
Yeah.
I had a guy one time that asked if he could masturbate in front of me to show me if the technique is right, and I said absolutely not.
Yeah. Yeah. That's more of a sex. No, that's not even a sex therapy.
No, some people just don't know. They don't know. They hear sex and they think that they can do.
Yeah, so that's
Right.
very true. Yeah, you
If
learn
they
how to
were
react to the
so,
question.
sometimes you're so repressed that you go hard the other
So
way.
we educate, and they're cool. They're like, oh damn, doc, I didn't know that. All right, I won't show my junk in front of you. And I'm
That's
like,
fair.
Thank you.
That's fair.
So yeah, but
And you have
hit
a
me.
podcast too as well?
I do. I have a podcast, Sex and Chronic Illness with Dr. Lee, where we have shame-free conversations about chronic illness and sex.
Nice.
So yeah,
That's important work. There's a lot
It
of people with
is.
chronic pain out there that feel run by it, that need to feel sexual in their sexuality.
absolutely.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much for being on the show. This was a great episode. It was a
know.
joy talking to you.
It was great.
Thank you. This has been Guys We Fcked, the anti-slut shaming podcast. We'll talk to you next Friday.
Yay.
Thank you. That
Oh my God, I want to hang out. That's so fun.
Fun.